Well, hello there. This is Virtuals, the chess noob, learning and having fun with chess. I've got a really interesting line to show you today out of the Englund Gambit, the Englund Complex, basically the Englund Gambit trap line. Let's immediately start. So, as you know, the Englund Gambit is a response against the Queen's pawn opening. The d4, we immediately strike in the center with e5, captures, and then a knight to attack, defend, and now the queen, attack. Basically, we take that pawn if we're allowed to. Now, one of the things is that many people will say that the Englund Gambit is trash. That even if you do the trap line, black actually is down on evaluation. And with white, once you know how to play the refutation, people will say it's terrible for black. Well, let's see. So here I'm playing a tournament against a Spanish opponent. This was actually a daily tournament. I'm playing for Team Australia against Team Spain. And my opponent is quite a bit higher rated than me. So in Rapid, they're rated in the 1600s. I'm in about the 1300s. At peak level, I was 1400, so a few hundred elo higher. They obviously know how to refute. First indication, they play bishop to g5. This is considered the best move by Stockfish at higher depth. Now, normally people will play bishop to f4, and the idea is to defend, but here they can do the same thing with bishop to g5 because I can't take with the queen and can't take with the knight because the queen is under attack. Now, this will transpose back into the Englund Complex, which is the beginning of the trap line, with queen to b4, check, fork of the b pawn. Now, if the bishop was there, it will also have an attack on the bishop. But here they can play knight first, which is the correct move. I take, and now bishop back to d2. Excellent move. Again, this transposes back to the usual trap line in the Englund Complex. Black's turn now is to play the bishop here, and the beginning of the refutation, the beginning of winning for white, is rook to b1. Now, I knew all this was going to happen, seeing how they played it, and the fact that they're in the 1600s. So, are the people who say that Englund Gambit is trash because of this refutation? Because it looks like it is, because queen looks like it's forced to this square, and basically white now gains the initiative. The knight can potentially attack here. It's really, really bad for black. The rook can come here with an attack on the queen. However, one of the things we need to observe is that master level players, so title players, play the Englund Gambit in Title Tuesday. Now, I'm not saying they win a lot, but it's still playable at that level. And Canadian Grandmaster Aman Hambleton of the chessbrahs recommends this following move. So I agree that if you play what Stockfish reckons is the best move here, you're stuck with a withering, terrible position. You're on the defensive. White gains the initiative. You might as well give up. However, what Hambleton recommends is queen captures the knight. You might ask, that seems like it's crazy. Let's see what happens. Queen captures. They force to take back. We capture back with check. Can only block with queen or knight. Obviously, knight. And now bishop captures the pawn. And what we have done is that we've traded our queen for two minor pieces, a bishop and a knight, and also a pawn. However, even though this position, Stockfish would have called that an inaccuracy, it's only slightly worse than queen to a3. It's almost the same, but I would say that we've gotten some tactical compensation. Firstly, white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. So numerically 5 pieces. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Numerically 6 pieces. We are better developed than white. That knight is in a slightly awkward place. Our pieces are completely okay. Our pawns are pristine. Perfectly good position. White has 2 isolated queenside pawns. So even though this position is about +2.5, maybe a little bit worse than +2.5, black still has the resources to launch an attack, potentially a rapid attack. We are not on the defensive. White has not gained the initiative, and we can potentially attack back. Now remember, I'm quite a bit lower rated than white here. Let's see how the game proceeds. So, makes sense. Opening up that light square diagonal, and here white plays really quite well. I developed the other knight. The idea, rapidly try to castle the king, put it into a safe place. They develop that bishop, that's a good place. Here, I can either castle, that's fine. However, I decided to play d5, which on high depth, I was gratified to see was actually the best move. And the idea is, 2 intervening squares from the knight, it sort of constrains the movement of that knight. Here, they immediately attack. So white, sort of knows what's going on. So their idea is they want to immediately attack, try to destabilize my obviously inferior potential position. However, the more correct move was actually for white to consolidate, and then make use of their advantage in terms of having the queen. But here they try to attack. It's a very natural thing to do. Now the best move I think here for me is to actually to push that pawn. However, I thought here is fine, castle either side, give myself an option, though I wasn't seriously thinking of castling queenside, I think. They take back, still I thought that was okay. 2 squares away from that knight, again constrains the movement of the knight. They have an attack, and here I decided to take that pawn, try to trade. They now take, that's fine. And here I short castle, need to get my king into safety. Now this was sort of not very accurate. White is gaining a bit of an advantage with an attack here. But here, because I just have the pairs of bishops, pairs of knights, I can try to do some tricky things. Now the first trick I launched was, it looks like that this isn't very good, maybe have to do that, potentially just losing a knight. I decided to play bishop to b3, very, very tricky. White had just moved their queen. I was thinking, oh look, maybe they won't think too far about it and take with the queen, and if they did that, then bang, very, very nice fork. So potentially that's what I was seeing. However, white saw through that trick. It is a fairly superficial trick, and so they decided to capture with the knight. That is the correct move. Now capture this way. They brought that knight back, and now I bring this knight forward with an attack on the bishop. They move the bishop, but now again, just the advantage of having multiple minor pieces, just more pieces numerically than white, especially with one, with their rook still not being active. I now have rook ad8, a double attack on that knight, so I'm winning a piece back. So they decide to castle, makes sense, and I capture. And once again, I am numerically up a piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And one of the things is when there's this, superiority for me with numerically with the pieces, if white can't take advantage of their queen, it's not obvious that it is good for white to do a balanced trade of pieces, simply because it may end up giving more advantage to me having that numerical piece superiority than necessarily being bad for me, at least until they can get an attack and consolidate. All right, they capture, that's fine. I expected all these pawns on the queen side to go. It's fundamentally not a major issue because white has no pawns on the queen side. They're not going to sneak a pawn to promotion on that side. Now, bishop out, potential attack here. I want to get these knights potentially into the attack, also potentially opening up the file for my rook. Here, they take, that's good. Knight now forward, double attack here. Here, they give an attack. And here I decide to launch another trick, another trap. So rather than bringing the bishop all the way back, and I think here is potentially best actually, I give a more tepid maneuver, bishop to e5, basically trying to bait white into playing f4. And that's what they do. It's a blunder, and look at that, 0, 0, 0. 0, 0, 0 when they're up +4 in material, which goes to show just how strong my position is. So this weakening of the defenses of their king, you know, lured into it because they're just thinking that they've got the queen, it should be all right. That was a bit of a mistake. Now here, I've got the immediate bishop to d4, absolute fork, king and rook. Now the king is forced into that square. If they come here, you know, I've got even more fun and games this way. So take, so I think, you know, high def Stockfish suggests some other moves are slightly better, but it's only very, very minor different here. Let's take out their rook. So now they only have a rook, bishop, and queen. And that is not better than me having the rook pair and the knight pair. The pair of knights, particularly when they're supporting each other, can be very, very tricky, very, very trappy. Rook now to the second rank, very powerful with an attack there. They're in some trouble. They move sort of their, sort of queen out of potentially that file. That makes a bit of sense. Also defending their bishop, of course, but you know, that was another fork. Bishop and pawn, captured for pawn with check. Now let's bring the rook back. And the goal is potentially to try to infiltrate, All right, they do another push. Here, the correct move is actually knight to e4, and that then leads to a trade of their bishop for my knight. Now, in this position, I suppose I felt a little bit constrained. I wasn't sure that I wanted to trade away my knight for their bishop, even though Stockfish says that's the correct move. It's about 0, 0, 0, as I said. Didn't want to do a backwards move. That didn't look right to me. Wanted to keep it in play. So I actually played knight to h5, and that's actually a blunder. So I thought this was okay because there's an attack here, and I thought that this would sort of bring another piece into attack, taking away white's pawns. The reason why that's a blunder, white had to see this tactic, is that they can deflect my king from the defense of the rook with check, capture, and then they win. Basically, white is winning in this position. However, lucky for me, they didn't see it. They decided to play this backwards bishop move, which looks like it's a good move, right? Looks like it's skewering my my rook to both knights along that light square diagonal. However, it's completely okay because now I have a rook to e3 with an attack here. Again, that loss of the defenses of their king, the exposure of their king with their pawns being pulled forward was a mistake for white. They take, but now rook with another fork with check. And basically king moves and I take, and here white is actually in some trouble. White now actually plays a blunder. e6. It looks like a completely reasonable and sensible move, and yet it's a blunder, and in fact black is ahead. It doesn't even show how good it is on sort of low depth. Here it's about -2. Black is actually completely winning, and this just goes to show the power of the queen sacrifice gambit in the Englund complex. At the same time, this also shows the sting in the tail, the downside, in that to potentially win, you need to find and play some really tricky maneuvers. Here, I don't find it. Here, I play this way, and that actually just brings us back to 0, 0, 0. The winning move here for black is actually to give a check, king forced into this position. Now take this way, the double attack. Best move now for the queen is to come all the way here to g5, but now black has takes, captures, and captures, and we now enter an endgame where it's king and queen versus king, rook, and knight. 2 connected passed pawns and 1 further passed pawn, and in this position, black is winning. Though it's not easy to play this position, I would admit that. So there are some other moves. So potentially in this position, if white played king to g2, we can potentially force win actually white's queen. So very tricky, trappy lines. Unfortunately, here I made the wrong move. I took this way, black to 0-0, back to 0-0-0. I literally didn't see that I was hanging. Here I was playing, I think, in the middle of the night on my device. I really shouldn't play tournament games like that. And so bring that back. You can see Stockfish says trade. However, I wasn't sure trading down to king and rook and pawns was winning compared to a queen. So I didn't do that. However, it's hard for them to play. It's hard for them to play. Here, I decided to play a rook to f5. Now, I did see this. I knew it was kind of a bluff. I thought white was probably okay there. They're not winning, but I immediately threatening a ladder mate. So white actually decided to pull back, queen all the way back to e2. This now brings us back basically to equality. And, you know, the next best move for me is actually h6. And it's a bit of a stalemate, actually, between black and white. Unfortunately for me, again, playing on a device, I think now very early in the morning, I literally hang a rook. So blunder, hang a rook, captures, all right, trade. And in this position, I opt to resign. Obviously completely losing now. However, those final blunders, I think they were on me. I just wasn't thinking carefully, but I was really pleased to see how I was able to use the England Gambit down the refutation line against a player who knew the refutation line and obviously much stronger. And nonetheless, I was able to bring a game to a position where black was at least drawing and even had a chance for winning. So good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is to try the queen sacrifice gambit line in the Englund Complex when white plays the refutation. You haven't got much to lose, and you definitely get a very dynamic and very fun game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.